So this is part two, and we were asking the question among several. Lastly, can orgasm be achieved with intercourse alone? And the answer is, for some females, yes, but generally no. There has to be some clitoral stimulation. Okay, so let's move forward and talk about orgasm facts that might be just interesting to you. Somewhere around 20% of females, that's a really rough number. We don't actually know the number, but somewhere maybe as low as, let's say 10 to 30%, how about that, of women report having orgasms during sleep. Well, males do too, but generally that stops after adolescence. But in the onset of adolescence, males often have what are called nocturnal emissions, which are early and not fully developed semen. They have them during the night, and they may have then a dream that was sexual or not around the time that they woke up and had a nocturnal emission. But they don't. But males don't have spontaneous ones on average. That would be really, really rare. Or during sleep after adolescence. There are a few males that continue to have nocturnal emissions, but that's not the rule. So, I think what I just want to leave you with about orgasm facts is the last interesting thing, and that there are different qualities of orgasms, but generally the biology of it is the same from female to female. A very small percentage of women have orgasms from nipple stimulation only, but that's a very small percentage of females. So there are always exceptions biologically, but they're very rare. In some cultures, now that I think of some more interesting things to say, male power is actually, and worthiness as a male in position within this culture, it's measured by how easily they can bring their partner to orgasm. Yeah, that's interesting. Okay, so back to the female response cycle. In the resolution phase, just remember everything goes back to normal. Myotonia decreases, the sex flush lightens, blood pressure and heart rate decrease, and about a third to a half of all females experience perspiration on their palms and or the soles of their feet. Okay, so if we talk about what women use to have individual experiences sexually, which we can list a lot of mythologies. These are on page 58 that I have heard from clients or others. People who use vibrators are going to get numb and won't respond to a partner. Masturbation isn't for people in a relationship. They won't want to have sex with a partner if they masturbate. All those sorts of things are untrue, right? Now, vibrators have a wide range of quality and strength. So there are battery-operated vibrators and AC plug-in vibrators. The ones that are plug-in are more powerful in general than the battery-operated ones. Every female has different orgasmic thresholds. Okay, so some females have a very high threshold, which means that they require significant stimulation to reach that level and go beyond it, such that they have an orgasm. Some females have a very low orgasmic threshold, so that they don't need as much stimulation to have an orgasm, to reach that or exceed the orgasmic threshold. And in addition, depending on lots of those factors we talked about, response and interest, desire, that can vary. That threshold can vary a little bit, right? Okay, sure it can. So, some vibrators are very expensive. There's something called the Sibian, that's $1,500 or so. And then there's just regular old body massagers that you plug in, like the WHAL wall vibrator that sometimes has a heat part that you can heat up and you can use it on your shoulders or so forth. There's a million different kinds with different shapes. Most of those are pretty silly. They advertise such slight differences from one to the other and claim that it's better than all the others, and most of that's just malarkey. But people generally experiment with what they like. So I always think experimentation is good, but just remember that the important thing is to find the threshold that you typically have, especially when it's higher than it usually is, okay? And that means that you want to start out with something that's very powerful that you can also turn to lower intensities. That would be the obvious thing to do, and make it a plug-in. Now, there's something called the Grafenberg spot, and the Grafenberg spot is not fictional, it's real. The doctor who discovered it really was Grafenberg, no surprise there. And it's a bit of tissue that's somewhat oval. It is somewhat spongy if it's detectable. It is on the anterior or top wall of the vaginal barrel, a couple of inches in. And it's somewhere around an inch to an inch and a half, somewhere like that. And if it's excited, it may distend a little bit and is palpable. Now, there's a lot of mythology here. What is true is that in a group of females, not 100%, but a group, we don't know what the real number is, when that area is stimulated, then a particularly intense orgasm may occur. In a still smaller group of those who have that tissue that is responsive, when stimulated, will actually not only have a stronger orgasm, but will actually ejaculate a fluid that is clear and not urine and not mucosal fluid. It is different fluid. We think that is retained in some females who have an enlarged Skene glands, Skene glands, which are made of tissue that eventually develop into what is the prostate gland in males. Okay? All right. So let's talk one more item here, and that is multiple orgasms. We talked about this briefly. It is possible, probably, for most females to have more than one successive orgasm, which is what multiple orgasms mean. More than one successive orgasm. Because females do not have what's called a refractory period. A refractory period, which occurs in males, is the period of time required to achieve a readiness to orgasm again. In males, it's to readiness by virtue of an erection, and then to be able to orgasm after that. Females don't have a refractory period. They have a resolution period that's slow. So the thing to note between males and females, an analogy I like to use, is that females are like irons and males are like light switches. So a male's sexuality is the switch is on, the light burns, and then the light goes out instantaneously. Females are more like irons. They heat up slowly. They can do as much ironing as they want, have multiple shirts that they iron, and then turn it off and it's still hot for a long time. It remains warm. Okay. Well, successive orgasms are probably things that most women are capable of. They just haven't experimented enough or don't want to do that, or it isn't a requirement. May require a vibrator. The first one or two or three may be the strongest and usually are. The others may diminish in intensity. Being in good condition and having a strong enough vibrator is important. Doing Kegel exercises is helpful. Kegel exercises are exercise. These are the muscles exercise when you squeeze when you're pretending not to have to urinate. You can squeeze everything. Right? Those are the Kegel muscles. The pubococcygeal muscles are the group of muscles that include your pelvic floor muscles that are tight and can be made stronger, which then in turn enhances the contractions during orgasm. Okay, let's talk about males. Yay! So as we talked about, males have a precipitous, a very rapid rise upward through the excitement and arousal phase. This is where the corpus cavernosa, the tissue found also in clitorises, enlarges with blood because it is vasocongested. That results in erection. The meatus enlarges. That's the opening of the urethra to the outside world. The scrotum, testes elevate, scrotum goes up. Scrotal skin thickens, tenses. In a plateau phase, the coronal ridge increases slightly in diameter, and the glans penis, the head of the penis, starts to turn bright blue or even purple. And during this time, or even before, the bulbourethral gland, remember that, also called the Cowper's gland, secretes a very small amount of lubricating fluid, which may also help with the acidity of a recent urination. The testes also, that it gives us just a little bit of fluid. The testes become completely elevated and engorged. So what the testes are doing is warming up. In the orgasmic phase, all the structures that we talked about, from the epididymis releasing sperm into the vas deferens, also known as the vas ductus, to the seminal vesicles, to the prostate, okay? All of those fluids contribute to the semen, which is then rhythmically and contracting by muscles surrounding those tubes out the urethra and the penis. The erection that a male has generally goes down very quickly in the resolution phase, okay? And then, of course, males have a refractory period. Now, that refractory period in younger males is much shorter. It may only be a few minutes or a half hour or something. And then the older you are, the longer the refractory period may be. So that if you're talking about an 80-year-old, then it might be as much as days. Okay? Okay. So that's also true of achieving an erection in the first place. So in teenagers, an erection can occur in 3 seconds or less upon sexual excitation. In a middle-aged male, it may require direct stimulation and then also be minutes, maybe. In older males than that, many minutes could be. Okay. So again, the sex flush can occur early on. The sex skin begins in the next phase, which is the plateau phase. Sex flush continues. Coronal ridge increases its circumference just a little bit. Testes elevates, etc., etc. We talked all about this already. In the orgasmic phase, one last time, the fluids contributing to semen are added as the sperm pass each region of the vas deferens and then the uterus. And males reach the point of what we call the ejaculatory inevitability point, the point of no return, some people say, which is the point at which you're going to have an ejaculation whether you do something about it or not. Those contractions of orgasm occur at 0.8 seconds apart for the first 2, maybe 3 emissions. Now, why is it important to know something like, I don't know, ejaculatory inevitability? Well, it turns out all of these things are important. And they don't just not just names or processes. These are important things. Let's talk about, the treatment of early ejaculation, sometimes called premature ejaculation. I like to call it early ejaculation with clients. And What's one treatment of that? Well, it's helping them to recognize the point of ejaculatory inevitability so that they can apply the squeeze technique where they squeeze the urethra on the shaft of their penis, which then can shut down the ejaculation. They learn what that point is, and they learn what just before they reach that to apply a squeeze. So there's just one example of how that information can be useful, right? Okay. Is ejaculation the same as orgasm in men? No, not technically, because during sexual excitation, the bladder sphincter, the opening of the bladder containing the urine to the urethra, is closed. If it's open for any reason at all, medication can do that, certain nerve dysfunction can cause that, surgeries can sometimes cause that. So if it could be open when the male is having an erection and there's an ejaculation, well, the ejaculation is going to go into the bladder, not come out the end of the penis. And if a male didn't know that was going to happen, did never heard about that before, that might be very freaky for them. Freaky is a technical word meaning, what's that? But it's simply sent into the bladder, and then with the next excretion, it's eliminated. So it's no problem. It's just that we have to then apply some treatments that are more medical than anything else in order to deal with that if they can. Okay. And then there's a resolution phase, which is everything goes back to normal. So that's volume 2 of this subject, sexual arousal and response. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.